G'day everybody, Matt Ellis with you for the latest edition of the Cricket Library podcast, and today we have a very special treat for you. Madeline Penner, a superstar with the bat.
Gives herself room, Penner, and finds the gap nicely. Nice footwork and a lovely gap that's been pierced there. Maddie Penner. The team has gone nuts down at the dugout. That is an exceptional 100. Maddie Penner.
Very well batted.
She's also more than handy with the ball.
This one's up in the air. There's a fielder there, though. And Tess Flintoff takes a smart catch. And there it is, the fourth wicket for Penner. And the next one goes down for the Sydney Thunder.
A young player who's overcome injuries, juggled her commitments at university to play in the WBBL and WNCL competitions. Today we hear the Maddie Penner story on the Cricket Library podcast. It's a very warm welcome to the Cricket Library podcast. Maddie Penner, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, how you going? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, we've got you during the Olympic Games, the hundreds on, plenty of things to watch on the TV, but hopefully we get to hear some interesting things about your life as a cricketer. You're still only very young, but can you tell us where your passion for cricket started?
Well, mine was a bit different actually. So as a kid, like through school, I actually played a lot of sport, like volleyball, Oztag, soccer, anything honestly that I could kind of get a bit of time away from school. I kind of joined up, and I actually was like at a young age, I was quite a good little soccer player, but had a bad knee injury at around the age of 9. So I had to kind of give that away, and heavily went into swimming, as it was kind of like a non-impact kind of way to keep fit. But then, yeah, at school, the boys that I was friends with asked if I wanted, obviously, to take a day off school and go play some cricket. And I actually had an absolute blast. Like, playing with the boys was awesome. And I really enjoyed it. And then I came home and went to my parents and was like, oh, I played cricket today. Like, I had a really good time. Like, I want to actually play outside of school. And then, yeah, joined the local boys team back in Sydney, and yeah, it went from there.
So do you have brothers and sisters at all?
I do. I have a younger brother. He's currently 16, so he's about 4 to 5 years younger than me.
Yeah, okay. So when you were starting to love cricket, he was probably still a little bit young to be getting out in the backyard with you?
Yeah, we always, at Christmas and all that kind of stuff, we were a very sporty family, so we always got outside and played absolutely everything. And we definitely did play outside, out in the backyard, and I obviously thought I was a lot better than I was, like any kid would. But yeah, I didn't really have any interest in it until I actually played my first game. Because my dad used to play when I was quite young, and I used to complain to Mum that I didn't want to go and watch the grass grow because I thought cricket was the most boring sport ever. So it's funny how things change when you kind of get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned playing junior club cricket there with the boys. At what point did you start to think, I could be pretty good at this, and start thinking about things like representative cricket or all girls cricket? Did you have much opportunities for that early on?
Yeah, I did actually. I was pretty lucky because at the time that I like started playing, I think I was in maybe like year 5, and then I actually got asked in year 6 if I wanted to trial for the New South Wales primary school sporting team. So I was pretty lucky in that sense that I was playing with boys outside of school, but through school they had girls teams. And luckily enough, I actually made that New South Wales side. And yeah, it kind of just grew from there. And then as I went through the ranks. It kind of went into underage cricket with New South Wales, and there was a lot of New South Wales trials through school as well. So I was pretty lucky in that sense.
Yeah, and you make your way into the New South Wales cricket pathway with the academy and developing your game through there. When did you start playing for Bankstown in women's cricket?
I think it was around the time when I think I would have been in year 7. They started introducing like turf to the national comps and underage cricket and all that kind of stuff. So I actually was obviously with the boys playing on synthetic.
Yep.
So I wanted to get some experience playing on turf, and I got approached by Bankstown asking if I wanted to join their club, and obviously it was an all girls team, so I jumped at the opportunity to go play with some girls, and yeah, I've been playing there ever since.
And you have some success there as well. You win a premiership with Bankstown. Do you have any fond memories of playing club cricket and your successes there?
I do actually. I was pretty lucky. I reckon I was about 15 or 16, and we won the second grade premiership, and so did the first grade team. And at that stage, we had like the likes of Sarah Ailey, Ash Gardner, Corinne Hall, Erin Burns. They were all playing in our first grade team, and obviously at a young age, you look up to those girls that are at a high level and playing WNCL. And at that stage, WBBL was just brought in. And yeah, I was pretty lucky to have such good role models playing at the club I was playing at, and obviously just a grade above me. And then the year later, I was actually asked to run drinks. I was like 12th man for the first grade team. So it all kind of happened pretty quickly, and it went from me idolizing superstars like them to actually playing alongside them.
Yeah, unbelievable. And you also, with the New South Wales pathway, sort of around that time, maybe a little bit later, playing in the under-18s nationals with a lot of girls that have gone on since then to be names that we know. Who were some of the players that you're playing with and against in and around that time in your age group?
Well, I think the first big one for me was my first year in 18s. I didn't make the New South Wales side, but I was picked in the CA11 side.
Yep.
Which I captained alongside Annabelle Sutherland, who is now playing for Australia.
Yeah, she's going okay.
Yeah, she's just going all right, isn't she? And yeah, I was pretty lucky to play against people like Sophie Molyneux, Taylor Vlamnik, Georgia Wareham. And obviously at that time, they were kind of around the similar age as me and in their respective states. So it didn't seem like such a big deal back then, but now you kind of look back on it and you're like, wow, I shook Sophie Molyneux's hand because she was the opposing captain when we played them a few years ago. Like, it's quite funny how much the women's game's grown and how players like them have excelled. And you just think, like, I was literally just versing them like 4 or 5 years ago. So
yeah.
It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and then to get the opportunity to make your debut for the ACT Meteors against Victoria. I think you're Meteor number 128, if I've done my research correctly. What was that like to come into the top women's competition in Australia in the WNCL?
It was kind of a dream come true, to be honest. I actually wasn't contracted with the Meteors. I just had a major knee operation that year, so I was kind of on the mends of that, and we unfortunately had a few injuries, and our skipper, current skipper Andrique, tore her Achilles, so we had a few players out, and I actually got a call maybe a week before we flew out and was like, oh, like, you're going to make your debut. And I was like, you're kidding me, right? And they're like, no, no, you're gonna make your debut at Karen Rolton. And I was like, oh my god, like I was just like taken back because obviously not getting a contract and kind of just being around the training group, you didn't really have many expectations of where you sat or if you were going to play, I guess. And yeah, to be able to get that opportunity and make my debut was absolutely amazing.
And any reflections on the game itself that stand out? Do you remember much about the game, or is it all just a bit of a blur?
Oh no, I do. We spent like 5 or 6 hours just waiting around because it was pouring down. So we actually got. I think we only ended up playing. I think it was like 22 overs or something like that. So it actually wasn't a 50 over game. And yeah, we spent most of the morning sitting around in the change room having a laugh because it was just literally pouring. We actually didn't think we were going to get on. But I hit my first six on that oval, so I also got run out quite poorly, which I will probably remember forever. But I think I got my first wicket as well, so it was and we got a win. So it was a pretty good first game and a pretty good start to the season as well.
Yeah, that's ticking a few boxes there. First six on debut and a wicket. I just wanted to ask you around the rain there that day and how you kind of manage your nerves. Did you find that it helped you being in the change room with the girls, having a bit of a laugh, having that downtime where you're kind of almost not expecting you're going to get on? Do you want to just explain to us a little bit about how you manage your nerves pre-game?
Yeah, I think it did me a lot of good because I'm someone who gets actually quite nervous. I have a lot of expectations on myself, and I tend to get quite nervous before games, regardless of if it's my debut or if I've played 4,000 games. But yeah, it was quite nice. Like obviously rocking up in the morning, it was quite like miserable, so we didn't really know where we sat. But then once we got that first chat from the umpire saying it's going to be a little while, it kind of just put me to rest a little bit. It's like, okay, well, I just have to kind of relax and just chill out for a bit. Don't really have to switch on until we actually have to start warming up. And yeah, the girls did a great job. There was actually 4 of us that debuted that day, so it wasn't like I was alone either.
Yep.
But yeah, we just all had a bit of a laugh, and we were throwing the ball around, kicking the footy, and it kind of just didn't really feel like we were actually going to play at one stage. But then, yeah, when we actually got presented our caps and we got into warm-ups, everyone was like, oh, okay, it's starting to get real now. And then that's when obviously the nerves kicked in. But once we kind of got started, it settled a little bit, which was nice.
Did you happen to have family or friends able to travel for the game?
I did actually. My mum and dad and brother flew to Adelaide.
Oh, how good!
Which was awesome. So they actually stayed there the week when we played Victoria, and then we played Adelaide. So yeah, it was real nice.
Yeah, and they've been big supporters of your cricket all the way through.
Oh, massive support. I don't know how many times my brother's like, oh, I don't want to go and watch you play cricket, but I know deep down he loves getting days off school and he loves watching me. And now it's the opposite reaction. Now he says, oh, can I come watch you play? Because he knows that he's going to get a day off school. So he's been awesome, and my parents have put in so much time and effort to make sure I got to where I wanted to be, and still are a massive help this day, even though I don't live with them anymore. So yeah, they've been a great support.
Oh, that's outstanding. Now, tell us about the call-up to the Melbourne Stars. How does that take you completely out of the blue? Give us some background around that call-up.
Yeah, honestly, I was so shocked. So I literally was just on my way home from uni. So I was still living in Sydney at this stage. I hadn't moved to Canberra yet. But obviously I only played 2 WNCL matches and didn't do outstanding. And then I got a call from Erin Osborne, who was our skipper at the time, and she was just like, "Oh, like, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm just driving home from uni." And obviously, when your captain of your team calls you, you know it's something big.
Yeah.
And she was obviously in Melbourne at the time because they were just a week out from starting WBBL. And she was like, "Oh, like, how would you like to play for the Stars?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Oh, like, do you want to play for the Stars this season?" I was like, yeah, like, obviously. And she's like, "Okay, that's like, all right, no worries. Tempy's gonna give you a call in about an hour or so. He's just gonna chat to you." I was like, "What's going on?" Like I literally couldn't even get a sentence out. I was just I tried to ask so many questions, but nothing was coming out of my mouth. So I was just literally taken back. And she's like, "Don't worry, don't stress. He's just gonna call you in an hour or so." And I was like, "Okay, bye." I got off the phone and I was like in peak hour traffic in Sydney.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh my God," like, I had to call Mum and she didn't answer, and I tried to call Dad, he didn't answer, and I was like, "Oh my God, I have no one to speak to about this. Like, what do I do?" Like, I was just honestly like stressed about the whole situation. Anyway, I got home and all was okay, and then he gave me a call and he was just like, "Oh, we'd be interested to see if you were like keen to play for us this year because like Alana King's broken her thumb and we need like an injury replacement player." And I was like, "Oh my God," like, "Yes." And he's like, "Okay, you'll need to be here so on Thursday." And I was like, it was Wednesday night that he called me.
Oh,
So
wow.
I got off the call from him and I literally shoved all these pairs of clothes in my suitcase, just shoved everything in I could, and then was on the plane to Melbourne the next day. So it all happened really fast, but it was honestly something I'll probably remember forever, to be honest.
Yeah, an incredible whirlwind. And coming in predominantly as a bowler, I was going to ask you about that as well. As a youngster, did you view yourself more of a batter or a bowler, or a batting all-rounder, a bowling all-rounder? What did you see as your value add to the teams you were
Um,
playing in?
it kind of chopped and changed over the years, to be honest. So I originally started as I'm going to say fast, but I definitely wasn't.
Seam up.
A medium pace bowler that batted top order. So I was always more dominant with the bat. But then with my knee injury and whatnot, I kind of went to spin, and I was actually with Lisa Stalaker at the time in underage, and she was just like, "Oh, just bowl spin and see what happens." And naturally, my version of a leggy came out.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of stuck with that. And then since then, I've just been, I was either a bowler that batted or I was a batter that bowled. I do consider myself an all-rounder, but
Yeah.
it kind of just depends on what the go is during the day and what the team needs, I guess, at the time.
Yeah, yeah, and because you make your debut, I think it was against the Sixers you play your first game, but the game where we get to see you bowling and having success at your old home ground, Bankstown Oval, against the Sydney Thunder, 4 for 20 and some big wickets.
Yeah, honestly, that day was unreal. I was pretty lucky. I didn't honestly go in with any expectations of how much I was going to bowl and when I was going to bowl. But yeah, obviously the first game against the Sixers was quite nerve-wracking. I was bowling to Elise Perry and Ash Gardner, and obviously they can both hit a long ball, and all I was thinking was just don't bowl in the slot so they don't hit it over the fence. But yeah, that second game, it kind of didn't really feel like a big bash game, if that makes sense, because I was obviously at my home ground at Bankstown, and it just kind of felt like a grade game, which I think helped me a little bit and took like a bit of the nerves away, which was nice. But yeah, unfortunately we didn't come away with a win, but to come away with those wickets was pretty exciting.
Yeah, a real good way to kind of show yourself that you could do it at that level as well. 4 for 20 in a WBBL game under pressure, a great result. Now you moved to the Strikers Can you tell us how that came about? You have that year down in Melbourne. Do the Strikers reach out, or do you? How did that all come about?
Yeah, so obviously I was pretty keen to stay with the Stars, but my manager spoke to me and was just like, oh, they have obviously Alana King, and for me it was more about opportunity.
Yep.
And obviously I didn't really bat much with the Stars the year before, and that being my dominant skill, I wanted to, I guess, showcase that. So he said to me, "Oh, the Strikers are pretty keen. Like, would you be interested, in going there?" And I was actually living with Katie Mack at the time, and she obviously had played for the Strikers for a few years, and she was just kind of raving on about how good the girls were and how much she enjoyed the coaching staff and the environment. And I was just kind of, it didn't take me long. I was just kind of like, yeah, you know what, let's do it. I'll just make the move and see what happens. And I'm honestly very grateful that I did, because the girls were amazing. This coaching staff were awesome to work with. Luke and Jude, and then Charlotte Edwards as well, was just amazing. And I've actually made lifelong friends there. So it was a pretty good move, and I'm pretty happy with it, to be honest.
Yeah, and you mentioned opportunities to bat. One of those opportunities, a very destructive innings, including 24 off and over against the Hurricanes, 56 off 33. Any reflections on that innings, and was that a real? I think it might have been the first time a number 7 batter had scored a half century in the WBBL. I may be wrong on that, but getting runs, proving to yourself you can do it, and making a statement with that innings.
Yeah, it kind of it crept up on me a little bit, to be honest, because obviously I went out there and I think we were, I'm not too sure what we were, but we were not a lot. I think it was 65 or something like that. And I remember speaking to Lottie beforehand, and she was saying, 130, let's get to 130. So I had that in the back of my mind the whole time. And obviously when I just got out there, I was like, okay, I just need to kind of build on this innings here and actually bat the full 20, because we need to bat the full 20. And then Tegan McFarlane come out, and I just basically, something just kind of went over me when we had maybe 4 overs to go, and I was like, we're going to do this, let's get to 130. And it just kind of happened, and we just started hitting boundaries, and it just kind of went quite smooth, I guess. And yeah, and then the last over, I just basically said to Midgie, I was just like, I'm going for it. I'm literally just going to swing and just try and hit the boundary every ball. And she's like, no worries, I'm just going to run quick between the wickets. So I was like, okay, no worries. So we had a bit of a plan there. And obviously the first one I didn't really get away. But then once I got the first boundary off that over, I was like, okay, all I need to do is find the rope and swing hard.
Or the bike track.
Yeah, so it was actually quite frustrating, because the over beforehand I was hitting to the short side, and I did not middle one, and I didn't get a boundary. I got singles every time. It was just so frustrating. And then obviously I hit my first 6 to the long side, and I was like, oh wow, that felt good. And then the second time I hit my 6, Midgie gave me a hug, and I was like, Midgie, there's still a ball left. And she's like, you just got your 50. I was like, looked at the scoreboard, and I was like, oh. And I just was in such a mindset of just scoring as many runs as possible that I just completely had lost focus, I guess, on what I was doing individually. But yeah, it was a pretty good game, and definitely one I'll remember for a long time. Yeah,
absolutely. Another one we'll talk about in a minute. We'll talk about it now, actually. WNCL, 118 off 100, your first WNCL 100. A massive achievement to score 100 at any level, let alone at the top level, against a pretty good WA side. How do you get yourself in the zone for something like that?
Well, I think for me the big one was like most of the games during the season. I kept doing all the hard work at the start and making it to that 30, 40 mark, but I just kept getting out.
Yep.
And I actually said to one of the coaches, Mick Delaney, he's like, "Oh, you can have a big game today." I was like, "I'm not getting out of like 40. Like I'm gonna score big." So I just kind of went in with that mindset of I was kind of over those little scores, and I was just like, I'm just going to score big today, and make sure we get over the line as a team. And then, yeah, like we obviously lost a few quick wickets, and but I just kind of had this mindset pretty similar to the Big Bash game of just scoring lots of runs and being out there, because the longer I was out there, obviously the more runs you score and the more benefit that is to the team. And then, yeah, obviously scored my first 50, and I was just that in the zone, and I just kind of kept going with it. And then, yeah, the 100 kind of crept up on me quite quick, because I think there was a few overs to go, and I said to Nick Hancock, I was like, "Oh, I'm just going to go for it." And she's like, "Get your milestone, you're on 97. I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I top edged it, and I was like, "Oh, I probably shouldn't have like spoken about it, because I probably would have played a better shot." It was probably the worst shot I played all game.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a pretty surreal moment, and it was quite exciting, because I had a real tough year, obviously with injuries and a few setbacks here and there. So it was nice to kind of see that hard work that I put in like pay off, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your injuries and how you stay motivated and keep your drive to want to get yourself right. You mentioned early on your first knee injury when you're 9 years old playing soccer. So you've obviously got a history of building resilience and overcoming those kind of setbacks. How does Maddie Penner get her head in the right space to push through? How do you see yourself overcoming these things and bouncing back after dealing with injuries like that?
It's definitely not easy. I'm not going to lie to you. Obviously, like you said, I actually had a knee op when I was 9, and that actually didn't go to plan. So for about 8 to 9 years, I just kind of played in pain and went through all the rehab possible to try and get myself right, but nothing kind of seemed to work. And then I actually had another knee op towards the end of 2018. And then towards the end of the season with the Stars, I actually had another one after that. So I've had 3 knee ops on the same knee. I recently just had an ankle operation because I rolled the same ankle maybe 12 plus times.
Oh, gee.
So that was giving me a lot of issues over the years as well. A few dislocated shoulders, tore my ligament in my elbow at Big Bash last year. And then the major one at the moment is I've got actually a stress fracture in my shin, which I had this time last year as well. So let's just say running and any sort of impact isn't my best friend at the moment. But it's not, I guess it's kind of made me the person I am today. Like a lot of people say that, but I genuinely mean it. And if it was like, if I didn't go through, I guess, that hardship or the extra sessions or the extra rehab and the extra long cool downs and warm ups and all that kind of stuff, I don't think I would be as motivated or dedicated as I am now. It's like I said, it's definitely not easy, and every time you get said, "Oh, you got to have 6 weeks off," it's not the best feeling in the world. And it does get me quite upset here and there, because you just go, okay, well, why does this keep happening? But like, I'm still young, and obviously hopefully got a long career ahead. But I just know that I'm not where I want to be yet, and I think that's what drives me to continue to do the hard work.
Yeah.
Like obviously it's every girl's dream to play for Australia and represent her country in her chosen sport. So until I kind of get there and I'm dominating that, then it's kind of like, well, I'm not where I want to be. So I guess that's a bit of a push, and I guess like most athletes, you always want to be the best version of yourself on and off the field. And I guess the more I put in behind the scenes, the better I'll be in the future. So all I tell myself is that if I do it now, hopefully I won't have to do it in a few years' time. So fingers crossed that all these injuries kind of start slowing down the older I get.
Yeah.
Maybe it might be a reverse thing for me. The older I get, the better my body feels. So, but yeah, it's definitely, it's not easy, but I wouldn't change any of it, to be honest.
Yeah, no, that's an outstanding attitude. And you mentioned being the best version of yourself, and university study is another element to a lot of our female cricketers traditionally have had other pursuits outside of cricket prior to things sort of ramping up a bit with the WBBL and players being able to make more of a living out of cricket. Can you tell us about juggling your university study and playing WBBL? I understand you were still sort of studying and doing assignments and things. Like so, you go, you make your runs in the WBBL, and then you're hitting the books. How do you manage that?
It's not easy. I find it especially this year being in the hub and like obviously at uni, I found it really hard to kind of switch off, I guess. So obviously you come back from a training session, you have an assignment due in 2 days, you know you have to get that done, but at the same time you want to hang out with your new friends and you want to kind of just relax after a tough training session. But I guess it did kind of take my mind off the cricket side of things as well, I guess. So it was kind of a bit of a break from the cricket side. Obviously, mentally, it's not a break because you're still trying to learn, but physically, you're kind of just sitting down and you're trying to do what you can to help your, I guess, your other career path. And I think a big thing for women's sport in general, because we're not fully professional, there's a lot of people that are working outside of cricket as well. So they're training full time with cricket and they're working on the side of that. So for me, like that's the reason I went into uni, because I didn't want to rely on cricket to, I guess, build a career on. And I was always interested in the physio / sports side of life, I guess, and it was just an easy decision to go down that path.
And do you think as well, having experienced a lot of rehab and things like that, you've got a bit of intel around what it would actually be like being the person helping people with their injury recovery and that sort of stuff?
I really hope so. I really do. Because a lot of people have said, because I'm actually studying exercise physiology and rehab, so it's not really physio, but it's helps with the rehab side of things. And obviously, I've gone through 11 plus years of that. You would think that you'd kind of know what you're doing. But a lot of people have said, just because you study that doesn't mean you can rehab yourself. And I was like, oh, that is the only reason I'm doing this. But no, it was kind of, I always wanted to get into physio, but the mark was quite high for that, and it was obviously in high demand. So I thought, what's another avenue I can go down to kind of helping people in a similar situation to what I was in. So yeah, I kind of just went into that role, and it's at the moment it's quite broad, but hopefully towards the end of this semester and next year it kind of gets into the nitty gritty stuff, which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, your goals for the cricket season ahead, what's your hopes and aspirations? I know you mentioned your long-term aspirations, obviously, to to go all the way with your cricket. In the short term, what are the steps you're hoping to climb this season?
One would probably be get on the par, not injured.
yeah.
That's probably a big one.
Step one.
Yeah, this is going to sound quite cliche, but I think having fun, because I think the more fun I have when I'm playing cricket, the better I play. So I'm really looking forward to actually getting out there this season. Like, our game is, I think, honestly 2 months away to our first WNCL game. So it's come around quite quick, and obviously Big Bash is just around the corner as well, and it's obviously the best time of the year. So yeah, like, just have fun. I think I want to score lots of runs this year, and hopefully take a lot of wickets as well. So yeah, I honestly have like no expectations. So I say that now, but no expectation of what the season's going to be like. But yeah, I'm just really looking forward to getting out there with the girls and having a bit of fun, and hopefully scoring lots of runs and taking lots of wickets as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, get yourself on the park, and the next steps hopefully all fall into place for you. Now, it's been really wonderful chatting and really enjoying hearing your story so far. Before we let you go, Maddie, our hardest hitting question in cricket podcasts around the world, and very popular with our listeners, is we need to know your 3 net session options. So if you could have a dream net, you can have anyone you want. Could be cricketers, could be celebrities, could be you get to choose your destiny with this net session. Who are you going to invite?
That's a tough question. It actually took me a very long time to figure out who I would want. So I know you've actually had a chat with Maitland Brown, and I would say she's probably the best person for net banter in the world. So I would probably invite Maitland just for the banter, 'cause she throws a lot of shade in the net. She throws a lot. So I definitely have not missed that whatsoever. But yeah, Maitland Brown would probably be my first option. And then I reckon I'd go with Catherine Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
I had a bit to do with her with the Stars a few years ago, and obviously she had some speed on her back in the day, so I would be really keen to face her in the net. And then Shane Warne, because I actually struggle to bowl a proper leggy, so I'd be really keen for him to teach me how to bowl a leggy that spins. So they would be my 3 options, I think.
Oh, that's outstanding. So I think Maitland Brown, that's the first time we've had a current guest invite a previous guest on to be in the nets. That's outstanding. And Catherine Fitzpatrick also had a previous nomination from former teammate of yours, Kristen Beams, as well. So,
oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. So
he's a legend.
So some good company there. And Warnie, I think Warnie gets a mention nearly every second week on the Cricket Library podcast.
I can imagine.
The king himself. So Warnie, you're going to have a pretty busy calendar trying to fulfill all of our requests, but I'm sure you'll get to them. But thanks so much, Maddie. I've really enjoyed hearing your story today. I'm sure it will be one that youngsters will listen to and hopefully be inspired, and just cricket people in general that listen to the podcast. It's been really insightful, and really wish you all the best with your recovery from your injuries, and hopefully it's full steam ahead for the future career of Maddie Penner.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
A massive thanks to Maddie Penner for being the latest guest on the Cricket Library podcast. What a wonderful story. Playing all sorts of sports as a youngster, and then she gets invited to play a game with the kids at school and loves it. And she goes home and tells mum and dad, I want to have a crack at cricket. And what a great journey it's been. She's had to overcome injuries, still on the road to recovery there, but certainly a player with a lot of potential, and we've seen elements of that in the WBBL and WNCL competitions, and hoping to see more of the best of Maddie Penner in the years ahead. And we're very thankful and grateful for her taking the time to share the story of her cricketing journey so far, and may it long continue in the years ahead. And a massive thanks to you, our listener. We're here to share stories that inspire a love of cricket, and we really appreciate you taking the time to tune in. We appreciate you taking the time to leave us a review, leave us a comment, share the word with your friends, and get these stories out there. Let's inspire the next generation of cricketers with these stories, and let's share a love of the game. We look forward to having your company again next time. This has been Matt Ellis for the Cricket Library podcast. Bye for now.